Hey everyone, today we're gonna keep screwing around with Crystallised Omniscience, but this time around I think we kinda hit a dot. And I don't mean that in a bad sense, but I do think that this character could have used a little bit more time in the oven. But on the other hand, I wanna do something else, so I'm just gonna conclude this little adventure here. This is a Spectral shield throw assassin, and I know that someone out there is gonna be like, why not a raider, or heck, even a Scion combining assassin and raider? And to be quite honest, those are much better plans than this guy. However, this assassin still ended up being quite nice, though I personally feel like this character is mostly carried thanks to the free elusive on crit, which combined with grace tends to really cheese danger on a frequent basis, and the added movement speed whenever elusive triggers is also quite nice. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, this needed a bit more min-maxing, in the damage department at least. Some of the gear is really nice, but I'm also lacking severely in other areas, and you'll see what I mean once we talk about the gear. Overall though, I am not too disappointed with this character. It is okay, but I won't lie, there probably was more that I could have done, but at the point where I end his adventure with a serious Syrian Exarch and Eater of Worlds under his belt, I think that I can move on in peace. Though if anyone feels like attempting this same setup but instead of Spectral Shield Throw you use Shield Crush, I think that you might hit better results. Granted, that idea is gonna imply some changes, but I think it should be doable. Having said all of this, I think that after this character my Crystallized Omniscience adventures are over, at least for this league. It is a nifty item, but the challenge of juggling attributes around and losing out on their benefits is a bit too harsh at times, though since it's quote-unquote common, you really cannot go wrong with it, as long as you are building it accordingly. Before we move on, I think I might try to build one last character before, you know, moving on with some variety on the channel or something like that. I am liking the state that PoE is in right now, but I don't know if I have it in me to keep playing the campaign over and over every time I wanna try something else. We'll see though. I am also kinda stretching the intro mainly because the clip in the background is roughly 2 minutes long and I really want it to end before we jump into other build stuff, which should be happening anytime now. Anyways, let's discuss this character's shenanigans. Alright then, as the title, thumbnail and as I said earlier, this is a Crystallized Omniscience build, which means that every other piece of gear has in some capacity as much attribute modifiers as possible. At the place where I end this character's journey, I see that 1495 Omniscience, a couple levels more and I could have pushed that a bit higher. So, first, the shield. We want a thick shield with at least 1350 evasion and 300 energy shield, the higher the better. If you can get attributes on it as well, even better. And if you can craft the double damage while focused modifier, even sweeter. Our weapon is pretty much a stat stick, a thrusting one-hand sword with as much crit multi, fist as extra cold and fire, elemental penetration and attack speed around bosses, which I crafted, and finally an elemental damage quality enchantment. The chest has life, strength, increased strength and attack crit chance. The base doesn't really matter as long as you can color it for the gems that we are using. The helmet is a synthesized base with a reservation multiplier as the implicit, life, attributes, and we use deafening essences of loathing to force the mana reservation efficiency modifier. If it ain't obvious, this helmet will house 4 auras. Next are the gloves. Again, the item bases aren't that important, so don't worry too much about that. What matters are the modifiers, as much accuracy, attributes, life, and chaos resistance. We are also crafting cold conversion, and we're also gonna use icons to get the intimidation chance from the Syrian Exarch and cold conversion from the Eater of Worlds. Moving on to the boots, life, spell suppression chance, attributes, movement speed, chaos resistance, and we top them off with icors for physical as extra cold from the Eater of Worlds, and in my case I've got action speed from the Syrian Exarch. Finally, for the jewelry, both rings have attributes, negative mana cost of skills, and a minimum frenzy charge, alongside life and if possible chaos resistance. The belt is a synthesized base with increased strength as the implicit, attributes, life, elemental damage with attack skills and chaos resistance. 4 flasks, Taste of Hate and a Sulfur flask. I've also got Elixir of the Unbroken Circle, which is not mandatory at all, so any other flask that you might want to use is also fine. But that should be it for the gear, and the skills, which I added through editing. So now let's discuss the skill tree. Alright, this is a level 95 assassin. For bandits we do not side with anyone, and for the ascendancy we are gonna take pretty much a standard critical strike setup. Unstable infusion, deadly infusion, mist walker and finally opportunistic. Nothing too fancy. Now this is where the fun begins. If you haven't noticed, I am using a split personality, which has life and intelligence, which is why I am spending an extra point in the shadows starting area. though I am pretty sure that a thick jewel can replace this split personality. Anyways, this skill tree is focused around two things: attribute stacking, hence the route I took, and also some aura stacking. And we grab life, critical damage stuff, shield stuff, and other stuff on the way. And fortunately for us, we don't really need to path to weird places to get what we need, as most of the useful stuff is literally right next to the route we take. Having said this, we are also using jewels. First, a large cluster jewel with Advanced Guard, Feed the Fury, and Martial Prowess, and we are gonna spec into all the notables in this cluster jewel. We also use a medium and a small cluster. The medium, which hosts the split personality, has basics of pain and quick getaway. The small cluster has a spiteful presence to reduce the reservation of hatred. Now, for regular jewels, we use Seething Fury with a Corrupted Blood Immunity Corruption, which is gonna be mandatory, as in both the jewel and the Corrupted Blood Immunity implicit. Also, a Watcher's Eye with Spell Suppression with Grace and Cold Damage with Hatred. Critical damage, attack damage, or attack speed with precision also working here. And finally, a regular jewel with Global Fist Damage, Global Crit, Accuracy, Life, and attack speed. But that should be it for the skill tree, including the masteries which I added through editing. And with all of that out of the way, let's wrap up this build. With all honesty, I actually had a lot of fun playing this, but that's mainly because I've always liked the Spectral Shield throw. I normally build this skill around Bleed, but I figured that this time around we could build it around Crystallised Omniscience, which should have worked out nicely, but I think I went out on the severe hipster route by not building a Scion or a Raider and going in as an assassin. But that also didn't end up being too bad, especially with the elusive. That free elusive and grace combo is quite disgusting at times. Though, as the gameplay shows and as I said earlier, I feel like this character wanted more min-maxing, and to some degree I did leave out some things on the bare minimum. I am lacking a Helm enchantment, a Wood enchantment, an Awaken elemental damage with attack skills, a couple more levels for a bit more damage, etc. But on the defensive side of things, my spell suppression isn't capped, and this can be fixed with a better helmet that rolls that alongside attributes and mana reservation, obviously also life and other stuff, and maybe sacrificing the craft on the shield for spell suppression instead. Yet, despite all of this, as I said earlier, I think that Shield Crush probably feels a lot smoother on this setup than Spectral Shield throw, but since I feel like moving on to other stuff, I didn't bother testing that theory. Granted, the shield skills got a slap in the wrist after 3.15, when they kinda terrorized the endgame by being absolutely busted, at least in comparison to other stuff available at the time, so we are working with a severely neutered version of Spectral Shield throw. Despite all of this, the build performed adequately, with room to become thicker but also decent enough to have a fun time. Overall, I really liked playing with Crystallised Omniscience. I think that the amulet has a cool mechanic with an added challenge through the removal of attributes and their bonuses, which can be circumvented by the choices you make through the gear and the skill tree. Unfortunately, sometimes getting too creative screws your plans, especially since things like accuracy and life end up being a bit troublesome to cram into the build overall. Now, for the next epic experiment, I really want to try Reap as a chieftain, specifically in the cast on crit department. It really sounds quite wacky already, and in fact I've already started leveling that character and I am hating myself because Reap feels terrible early on. But I'm pretty sure that once I can equip the cast on crit gear and stuff, that build is gonna ramp up quite nicely. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me today. I'll keep gameplay going alongside royalty-free music. Thank you for watching tonight's video, take care, and until next time, peace out.
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
My champion, energize the spheres. Be gone. Seek